Hello, this is Gunner, and I'm going to be doing another sketchbook tour. I'm going to do a handheld approach. I'm not super sure how it's going to go, but should be fun. Yeah, so this sketchbook is a pretty interesting one. I got it back in October of last year, and I got it from these guys, Ex Libris Anonymous. It's pretty much just one guy working out of his house, and putting together sketchbooks made out of old books. This one I actually saw him personally create right in front of me as I talked to him. He cuts off the spine and then interlaces these blank white pieces of paper in between what's like actual pages from the book. And it's very interesting, and it's really inspiring to the creative process for me. And I have a few more like this. Let's see, like this one. It's a lot bigger, but same old style. I got it at the same time that I did the Life at Its Best. And I just really like the idea of it all. I think it's all very interesting. And it really inspires me to want to get into my sketchbook and make something compelling within it. So, yeah, I'm just going to go through it. You can see started October 2022, I forget exactly when, and then I finished February 5th, 2023. So it was a little bit ago. Took me a little longer than I usually do with most sketchbooks, but with some sketchbooks I don't focus on them entirely the whole time that I work in them. Sometimes I leave them like a quarter, 3/4 of the way through, or find a different book that I would rather be drawing in. So this one took me a little while. Yeah, so we'll just go through. This one was just a first page, playing off the idea of the title. This is kind of another nothing. When I first got it, I didn't really do too much in it. It was, I think, a week or so later that I actually started drawing things in it. This book is pretty funny. I read through a lot of the paragraphs a handful of times, and it's an old, I think, 50s or 60s book about the ideal life that you should live, away from sin, away from temptation and vices, and living for God and your family. And so I think that is very interesting and inspired me to take a kind of like counterculture route to it. This first drawing is based off this phrase, foundation for a happy life. There's the foundation. I think that's pretty decent. I mean, in real reality, I started drawing in this in November, but I got it in October. Yeah, I like the textures here. A lot of my compositions are very face-centric. Like I'll use a face or a head to anchor the composition. In both of these, that is the case. I think that's a bit of a crutch of mine, but I think it works out decently. I like the composition of both of these. I think this face is okay. Also, a theme in a lot of my drawings is text that just kind of shows up and is maybe based off of a song I was listening to. This one was very hapdash. I think I went straight to ink. Originally I did a blue line sketch of ninjas, but I hated it, so I left it for a little while and came back to it about a week later and just did that over it. I like it a lot more. It got kind of graphic, but in a science fiction-y kind of way. Pretty fun. Evil. This one I quite like. Just part of the reason is because it's in this book. But I also like the density of the hatching. I feel like I don't do that nearly enough. This one, there was a bang can, and I just went straight to inks. little Lincoln, Gannon, Oliver tree. It's pretty fun. I like it. These two are the similar thing. Just straight to ink hatching. I quite like this face. Bouncing ball. I like these cubes. This guy was very much inspired by Luke Baker. I wanted to do like a character's design of sorts that I was actually really thinking about, and so I did. And I quite liked it. I like that face. I think that face is pretty effective. With my compositions, I tend to, unless they're like this, something like this, where it's a landscape, or this, where it's just kind of more abstract, I try to just throw in random shapes like cubes or this rocket or these circles to kind of spice up the composition. I think that's decently interesting. This was at a time that I was still a bit afraid of making comics, so I had some comic-y elements, like here. I like this hatching. Planets is something I've always drawn just about the same, just assorted circles that have different patterns on them. That's something that's always been common. This was an actual hillside in California, where I was at the time. Still in California, but this hill was real. And I saw how the trees were speckled like that in a way that I don't ever draw. And so I really wanted to capture that along with these tracks. These two I did after I got some bad news about my grandfather. He passed away in November, and I drew these as my immediate response. I like these trees. I like this beard. I like this spread in general. This one, I just wanted to draw some action, so very basic, just busting cubes and then assorted shapes. This one very much inspired again by Luke Baker with these mechanical, semi-organic patterns in the skulls, and these little spikies. News. This is Kill Bill the rapper. His song "I Need a Pack." I wasn't even listening to it. I just thought about it, and I was like, that'd be cool to visualize. So I did. I like how that hand is gripping on there. This is kind of just nothing. Like I said, a lot of my compositions just center around a head or a face doing an expression like this, and then I find different ways to spice it up, like that, a little jester. This one, good bit of foreshortening. I like that background. I think I expanded on this kind of idea of like directing at the viewer later in different sketchbooks, but it's pretty fun. This was also during a tumultuous day I'd got broken up with, and the news of my grandfather's passing still kind of was going through me, so these are very emotionally charged. This one I drew in my car, just kind of to start the day. And then this one I still really like. I really enjoy the type of shading I did here. I wish I had the patience to do it these days, but I mostly just focus on brushwork. Usually when I get in a very moody feeling, I spend a lot more time doing this kind of hatching that's very deliberate and takes more focus. I kind of have to be not in like a bad mood, but I have to be in a certain headspace to really get myself in there and make something that just aggressive. This, I think it's a pretty good pose. Straight to ink, and I was not really considering much, and I quite like it. I really wish I could channel this kind of energy more, but it's fine. Same with this. I really like the shading on here, the kind of freestanding line work like there, and then even this face. There's stuff that I do that I draw very offhandedly, just spur of the moment, straight to ink, that I wish I could channel more consciously. This one's alright. I was still working out how I wanted to do this kind of shading, and I'll talk about it more on the next page just because there's not too much, but Something that really influenced me when I was in high school was seeing a drawing of a bottle in still life in ink, and seeing the way that the glass was drawn in ink, and having these little shiny blocks and the variety that you can put into the bottle while making it still look like glass but be very abstract. And that has always influenced how I do those kinds of bottles. There's a cool dog, guy in a mouth. This one I drew, I think I was slightly drunk, I think. Maybe not. The face makes me think it, but I like this. This is something I draw a lot, creeks. This is a very nothing drawing. I was just trying to draw something, and that's what I drew. This is also a nothing drawing, but I like this one a lot more. I like those shoes. I like this type of shading, the foaming beer. Green, I forget why I said that. This is Frank, the Jim Woodring character. This is fan art I drew of it, just because I love shapes and I love an excess of hatching to compose an environment, and Frank is full of that. So to kind of draw my take on Frank, it's always fun to do every now and then. This is me doing more comics. This one's, I think, a good idea, but execution. I always thought my compositions, still and in the past, have been very claustrophobic and not very compelling, I guess. But this was a tree I saw. It didn't really look like that, but I did a blue line sketch of it, of just the general shapes, and then I went very kind of abstract with my inking. Pretty fun though. This one was a little bit of another downer moment, but I like this hatching decently. I like how those teeth stand out. I like that kind of half-dash face. This one, I had, like, again, an interesting concept, but nothing really too great about it. I do like that shading though, the white spacing between the lines. I used that later on in my sketchbooks to do skies. I really should think more about my shading and really what I'm drawing, but a lot of the time with my work, it just comes, I just draw what comes naturally. I think very little. I think extremely, oh, it's invincible. I think extremely little about what I draw. This one I really don't like. I don't even think I posted this. I like that eye though. I think extremely little about what I draw. That's why I draw so many heads. That's why I draw things that are just near me. Those little shapes come from this. I bought it on jet pens and I've barely used it. Yeah, it's just also flow of consciousness. I barely think. When I put the pencil down, I just start going, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not so good. But I rarely go into a page with an actual concept in mind. This was some new pens that I had gotten, red and blue, to do kind of 3D type drawings. And those are really fun. I still have them, still use them. Another comic, that's Jesus Falling. This was inspired by, I think, Lone Wolf and Cub. I have been reading some volumes that I downloaded online, and it was very good. Here's some more of those in between pages. I don't think I ever uploaded this. I should do that. Yeah, this one did really good. I think drawing over the text was something I was always afraid to do because I didn't want to mess it up or make something that didn't have the same amount of punch as it could. But these turned out really fun, and they were really fun to do. I like that picture. I looked at that picture a lot. This is inspired by a painting that shows up later on in the book. This composition is something, very different. It's much more focused on the negative space and the contrast, and it's something I want to do more of. But again, that requires thinking. This was a bit of an era for me, these next few pages, or at least these 2 pages, of very hatch-heavy, and interesting figures. It's so weird that I can't do this so naturally. Like, I have to be in the right mind space to be able to hatch things like this and to make designs like this. Otherwise I just mess it up or hate it, and I don't like it. This is a bit of an emotionally charged one, but just kind of using generic characters. Used to love. It's inspired by the Jakey song. This one, very throwaway, and I like the cubes, I guess. The idea, pretty good. I like it, but me. This one was inspired by a number of beasts that I enjoy the design of, but it's an injured beast. I went into it just wanting to draw a new creature design that I haven't done before, or at least haven't done too good. Turned out alright. I think the concept is pretty good. This guy's a wrestler. I think he looks pretty cool. This, I just wanted to draw a big face with these repeating lines. And then this one, I had just read More Frank, and so Jim Woodring draws these like very chaotic but symmetrical creature designs, and I wanted to do something like that. This was, I was also reading Jim Woodring's autobiography book, Jim, and I wanted to do more comics featuring myself. So here was exploration of drawing myself, and here's a comic about myself. Pretty hard to read, I think. A bit unintelligible just because I went straight to ink, but this was really fun, and this is something I don't allow myself to do just subconsciously. I don't allow myself to just go into a page or a piece with nothing in mind and allow myself to have total creative freedom. I don't know, for some reason I limit myself in those senses. It's hard for me to really put my all into a page. I'm not too sure why. Another self-portrait of sorts. I like the concept here. I think that's unique with the fence spears sticking into the arm. Rare use of screen tone. More Frank-inspired imagery, or rather Jim Woodring-inspired imagery. I like that one. This is a drawing of a guy I know. And then Roger from American Dad. I almost said Family Guy. This is another one that I really like, this type of shading. And sometimes I really do look at shading like this, and I just wonder, how'd I do that? Why can't I do that all the time? Yeah, God, it's an obnoxious thing that to look at something that you've drawn and be like, why can't I do that right now? Why can't I just get myself to do that right now? This one was really fun. This is some PlayStation characters, Sackboy. This one I really enjoyed making. And this is more of me expanding into not exactly simple line work, but ink work that dominates the page as opposed to needing to be boosted up by an excess of hatching. This one was really fun. Speaking of an excess of hatching, this is an excess of hatching, bit of a self-portrait. This one I really enjoyed because of this landscape and those repeating clouds. I think the concept here was really fun. Sometimes I have a really good concept and I take it to fruition, and it's this type of thing that always happens where you have a really good idea and you're like, oh man, I love this, and you're really compelled by it, and then the moment you post it, it just kind of middles around. But it's hard to have a concept or an idea for a piece that you really enjoy, and then once you post it, you get nothing. It's good to do it for yourself and to keep yourself in mind. This drawing I really like. I think I was thinking of the cartoon, I forget. This one I also really like. A cage around a head. I like how that one turned out a lot. This one I also like how it turned out, even though it's pretty simple. This one I don't like as much, but I really like the shading on this one. Again, concept over execution. I came up with the concept for it and then just kind of middled around with it for a while. This one I liked, despite looking like I might not like it. This one was alright. I think I did this at lunch one time. It was Godzilla. Took a long time to get that pattern down. This one I really like. These types of very like weird faces and designs, inspired by like early 2000s or just 2000s DeviantArt to a degree. This face pretty good. Look at it, check that out. Little creature. You can see a lot of my landscapes look very similar, but this one I'm just trying to do a proper design of sorts. It was alright. It was pretty fun. This one's alright. It's just kind of a bunch of shapes, but I had an idea and I did it. This one, guy holding a drink. Pretty alright. This is Sword Guy, Sword Devil from Chainsaw Man. That one was really fun. I really like that guy's design. Hopefully you don't hear the chair squeaking too much. This is inspired by people like, oh god, they did The Pervert, but just furry art. I take inspiration from all sorts of sources, and the kind of emo scene 2007 furry art is a big inspiration of mine just because of how raw and emotional it can be. This is where I stopped for a little bit, and then this is where I picked it up. Hypodermia, fear of the needle. It's not true, but this design, that design I really like. I think that's really strong. I really liked what I was doing at this point. You can see a lot more heavy black shading. This guy was really cool to draw. Did I even post these? This was more just flow of consciousness. Same with this. Pant undone, zipper still up, arm is fine, trust me. I don't think I posted these. But who cares? Okay, ready yourself. And then kick. This is me getting back more into comics. Lizard Man. This is a similar design to the one at the beginning of the book in green, where I tried to just make a cool armor design. I think it turned out pretty good. That's the Linkara, the Lightbringer. Don't worry about that. Chain, hand holding a chain. That's the painting that inspired the drawing earlier in the book. What I need to be, guy with a pretty weak chin. I guess I wanted to. Another lyric-inspired drawing. This was, I think, this was a lot of very flow of consciousness. Well, I'd really like to know you. I definitely show a longing for things. I like to put emotion into my work wherever I can, in ways that are abstract like this, or very literal like that. I also like to just take a whole page to just draw something extremely simple and over and done. This one was pretty fun. Straight to ink with a fine liner, just with some decently heavy hatching. I like this robot design a lot still. This guy I really like. Inspired by more of the song lyrics. This one, good emotion. Prophet, just bulky 90s design. This one I remember really not liking, just because the composition was very messy, but I do like individual elements of it. I should feel freer. Bury me, please. More song lyrics, just a fun expression and a little idea. This is a little comic about, yeah, I filled 2 sketchbooks in like 3 weeks, and then someone called my comic cringe, and I couldn't handle it. This is an idea I really like, the car going over this way, hitting this person, and then this face, which I really like, inspired by my friend January. Another car hitting. I really liked how this one turned out. This one was more Frank inspired imagery, or Jim Woodring inspired imagery. And then this one was a broken ballpoint pen. So I think it's like it had the spine and then it was broken, but I think the tip was broken, so it was just bleeding all over the stem. And so I just like wiped it on the page like that, and then I left it as is, and I gave it a title, Individual Journey. Most abstract thing I've ever done. This one, I just wanted to draw very monotonous patterns. This one very messy, but there's a heart. Alien dessert to a robot. Couldn't eat it. This is probably, yeah, just two again, when I use these 3D chisel pens, it's very quick because they're so big. So I really enjoy doing it just because it's so flow of consciousness, and they turn out usually pretty fun. I quite like this guy. My fingers on the buttons. I like to think of little phrases like that and then incorporate that into the drawing's whole concept. This guy said he wants to live forever. What an idiot. Always. I like doing these little nature shots as well. More face-centric things, but I like the shapes and I like the heavy shading there. Oh, I don't even remember this guy. I really like that helmet shading though. Only true masters start a sketch with a foot. That's inspired by a story from Ted McKeever where he said Mobius started a sketch on a foot. These next few pages are just straight to ink with a big old ink brush. May your ink never run dry. And then more 3D pens. I really like how this one turned out, the bowling alley. These punches too were really good. Those were really fun to draw. I really like that background. I really enjoyed the end of this book. I like the patterns all over this. I really like that haircut. It's not something I do enough. I really like this one. A lot of red undertones with just some blue hinting. The red usually overpowers, but it's very fun that way. I can be the change I want to see. Get it? Because he's grabbing his eye. Just too empathetic, or more like I'm just too pathetic. More phrases that I just write and then they inspire the drawing. And this was the last page. Hello? All alone. 223. Still greater blessings. Is this the end, truly, of life at its best? Yeah. Thank you to Jacob of Explibris Anonymous. And then some ideas that I had for animated music videos. But yeah, it was a good time. Truly, life at its best. It made me happy, and that really is life at its best, isn't it? Making us happy. Hopefully, you enjoyed the video. If you want to see more in this handheld perspective, if you want to see more sketchbook tours, whatever else you want to see from me, feel free to say it in the comment section below. Thank you for watching.